Okay, so I thought I'd pre-record this because it's on my mind and it's an extremely important little, maybe 20-minute presentation. Okay, so our course is almost over and it's a world first. It may not sound like a world first, but I assure you, I'll tell you why. Basically, the name of the course is actually Tools of Uncertainty. And what you're going to face when you go out into the big bad world is uncertainty. A lot of the management tools that you have or you read in textbooks, etc., were developed during times of certainty, and risk management is about uncertainty. So these tools are for your future. There's no indication things will settle down around the world. The changes are dramatic, and all of this will affect your careers and affect events. So the information that you've been getting is the absolute latest. I'm in touch with the people around the world when it comes to risk, and also looking at developing countries as well, which is more likely where you'll be working. So I know about this stuff because, as it says there, I was the first to use the actual standard for events, because it only came out in 1996, and I grabbed it very early on and suggested to the people running the standard that this could be applied to events. That stage there was hardly even a word event, but eventually it all grew together. And as the years have gone by, we've looked at risk as really it's about forecasting and it's about probability. Some of these things are new to you, but get used to them, and making management decisions, okay, because it's about the future. And as you know, I gave you plenty of examples. So in summary, in times of uncertainty, risk management is essential. Risk management fits within a project plan. Now, this is very important. Your event is a project, and you should know project planning to put on an event. End of story. Nothing much more I can tell you about that. Anyway, risk fits perfectly within the project planning process. My theory, as I've developed over the years, and it's in those various textbooks I have, is that there's a maturity model for events, because I've watched it all from the beginning, ad hoc, that's that first domain up there, all the way through to where we're at now, which is number 4. That's in Australia and in a lot of countries. Other countries are actually in various stages, but they'll all travel this pathway. There's no doubt about that. Where we're at is we're at level 4, which is all about legislation, the need for risk management plans, and all those things that you did for assignment 2. Okay, that's very much level 4 on the leading edge. So let's have a look at the problems with level 4, because each one of these phases has different problems, what you call contradictions. It's what they call a dialectic, historical dialectic, as something moves along over history. So the big question is, where will it go? Anyway, we should have a look at the contradictions, because you met them when you were putting together assignment 2. Okay, and one of the big problems at present is that risk is actually creating these huge bureaucratic processes that create delays and high costs for events. And the complexity of navigating bureaucratic compliance now with events, okay, is huge, which means that only mega events can really comply with this, or events that are pretty well the same as every other event, which is a contradiction in terms, because events are supposed to be new. That's why the word event, out of the ordinary. And an example of this is the exponential growth of security companies. We hardly had any 20, 30 years ago. You hardly had any of these companies. And it had to do with terrorism. And that was because big events, mega events, which is what some of you are doing in the disaster thing, attract terrorists. Why? Because they're mega events, right? They are against the ideology of the terrorists, and that's why they attack them. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so security companies have grown, then crowd management companies have grown like you wouldn't believe. They're everywhere now. And of course, legal compliance has grown. And what I'm saying is that what I've been teaching you get you ready for the level 5, okay, which is where risk management is used for decision making. Okay. To make sure that you're up on this, this is the highest level that you can get at this point in time. Highly contentious, of course, because this guy actually knows what he's talking about, and he's a mathematician as well as expert on risk. And he's divided up risk into 2 areas, concern-driven risk analysis. I won't go into it big time, but certainly the COVID situation, which was a disaster for events, by the way, the COVID was definitely concern-driven risk analysis, and he was pushing for quantitative risk analysis. Now, I just put that up there. So if you want to go into it deeper, you can get that book or just look him up on the web. So what we're doing now is topic 11, risk training for staff. Now, don't forget, this is not just a knowledge course. It's very important. It's a competency course. It's to teach you how to do something, not just how to know something. It's not event studies, which is what a lot of courses are, actually event studies. Fortunately, ICMS recognised the importance of competency. So convening a meeting is something that you're going to have to do. You can't resile from it. You can't run away from convening a meeting. You've just got to do it. So learn how to do it now. There are many types of meetings, and I'll go through that. Before I do that, just a few things that happened in the last week that, once again, you've got to keep up on this stuff. If you're doing events, you must look up what's happening, because the risk is a big one. And here's one you probably don't know too much about, and certainly the people at the event knew nothing about, and that's what to do when someone throws a flare into a music festival crowd. You can follow that up on the internet to find out what happened, but it's exceedingly dangerous, and it does happen. Okay, and that's how dangerous it is. Okay, and getting back to one of my favorite topics, which is, of course, gas cylinder explosions. Okay, so here's another one that happened. This was in April, about a week ago, in which case 2 people were killed from a gas explosion. You got it? Just amazing. This is another risk one. This is the last one. It was interesting because I just saw it today, and this has to do with the event company suing the owner, in other words, the local council, the owner of the land, because the land wasn't suitable for events, and they weren't told that a tractor sank in the field during a festival some time ago. They weren't told about how bad the actual ground of the event was, so they're suing them. Interesting to follow these things. You can't believe that they're necessarily the truth. That's exceedingly important. Remember, these are, firstly, it's the press who will exaggerate stuff, and secondly, these lawyers who are going to present only one side of it. But either way, it gives you a good overview of the sort of things that can go wrong. So getting on to risk meetings. Okay, now I'm just going to go through 4 types of meetings that you will have when you're running events. Okay, and I know about this stuff not only because I have plenty of meetings, but because even though I could do all that stuff, I still went to Toastmasters for 10 years, okay? 10 years going to Toastmasters, and Toastmasters is fabulous. There's other ones that you can join, but I fully recommend doing something like this. It was brilliant time, well spent, and it's not like a course. You actually do it. You know, it's competency training. So if you want to, it's all around the world, so you should be able to find one nearby. I think there's a few other organizations, but do it. First one is a formal. Did I do the formal? Oh, well, we'll do the formal one first. The formal sort of meeting is the one that where you'll know about it, because there'll definitely be a chair, there'll be a secretary, there'll be apologies, and these things are important. Don't think that they're not important. They really are. There is a reason for these structures of these meetings. They're not there just to annoy you. Okay, so make sure, if you're doing formal meetings, you do all of this, and you really should go to Toastmasters. I said, they tell you all about this stuff. Generally, you'll get the minutes of the last meeting, which is very important, and that's how it goes through. And changes are done through motions. In other words, putting the change to a vote of the meeting. Then if somebody's talking about an issue, people have the right of reply. Now, why is it? Because it's covered by the law, right? Things that come out of this meeting, right, are covered by law. So you have to take it very seriously, the formal meeting. Once again, I can't go into it in great detail, but you can certainly follow it up with the Toastmasters or where are those books. So there's a few books on it. Renton, by the way, this one here, that is the standard for meetings. That's used all around Australia and I think probably around the world. Okay, the informal meeting. Now you'll do lots of these, okay, but always send out an agenda. You're trying to, people will not do this. And believe me, they generally do it because it's a power trip. They don't want you to know before you get to the meeting. So you ask for an agenda before you get there, okay? You must have a chair at the meeting, a person who knows how to run the meeting fairly. A group of people getting together is not a meeting, okay? People will disagree, well, there's a variety of things. If you have a chair, they can make sure everybody gets to have their say. Okay, the meeting will produce minutes or a task list. Often in project meetings, it produces what's called a task list, which is who's going to do what and when. Okay, that comes out of the meeting. That's very project management. You've got to ensure everyone has their say. Okay, now this is important because the ones that rattle on are often the ones with the least amount to say. So that's why you need a good chair to shut them up and make sure that the quiet person has something to say. And often the person is quiet because they're thinking. Okay. You always leave a section at the end, just in case, if anything else comes. Are there any other points? That's very important as well. And make sure the meeting stays on point, meaning stays with the theme. Very easy to get taken down pathways. So you, as the event manager, will be the chair of these meetings. So learn how to do it. Okay, formal. The next one is we've done formal meeting, informal meeting. Okay, the next one is the risk management meeting. Now, this is where you get together with the staff of the event, volunteers, whoever. It's good to get quite a big cross section. That's that elephant thing. You want to see different perspectives come to your meeting. Okay, you break them into groups and you ask them each to list the risks. Now, what you do is you show them how to do the likelihood and consequence and treatment. This trains your staff in risk management. Then they come up with things that are very sensible and they know to analyze them before they give them to you. So you just don't get a list of disasters. You actually get a list that says how bad that risk could be and also what possible treatments they can suggest. Now, this is important because everyone will come up with stupid things that could go wrong, believe me. And so you've got to have a way of nipping that in the bud, but still validating them because they may come up with something that you'd never thought of. Okay, so this is all part of training your training your staff in risk management or the team. You got that? So that then becomes the beginning of your risk register. How do I know this? I did it a few weeks ago. So this is something I've been doing for many years and it works really well. Okay. The next one, okay, is called the tabletop or scenario exercise. Now, I'll show you this in a little bit too much detail, but look it up. It's basically where you sit around with the staff and the people who are involved in the event and you look at if one thing goes wrong, what will you do? So you get them to work through the actual thing that could go wrong. Okay, and that gets people discussing things and you have something specific. You guys in your risk plans had some very general risks. Not a good way to go. You must be more specific. You can't just say trips and slips. You must say a person trips over something. And that enables you to focus in rather than keep it general. Risk management's not about the generalization. You focus in and then you can generalize. But without the focusing in on the specific risk, it's impossible to generalize. Remember, this is all about deduction and induction, which I showed you about before. Okay, so here's an example. This is the one we did with the Department of Home Affairs or Department of Homeland Security in the USA. Okay, now I'll leave this on the thing so you can go through on the website so you can go through it in a bit more detail. Remember, we're not just talking about your marks here. We're talking reality. You know, if you get out there and do events, this is the stuff you actually have to do. Okay, if you do big events, if you do even small events, I recommend you do this. But big events, you'll have to do it. End of story. You know, anything to do with crowds, you'll be doing tabletop exercises, and you might as well get to learn about them now. And there's tons of stuff. FEMA's the American. These are the guys I worked with. Okay, and they actually have how to run a tabletop exercise. It's very good, really well worded. I recommend it 100%. And as I said, we worked with them. The last meeting you've got now, remember what we've done here? We'll just go back, right? We have informal, formal risk management meeting and a tabletop or scenario meeting. Okay, and then we get to what's called the toolbox meeting. There's a variety of names for this, and this is basically happens on site with your staff. It could be called briefing, but generally the toolbox one is a good one because it emphasizes the fact that there will be some work on site, hence toolbox. Okay. So you discuss the safety of any coming work. You know, if something has to go, the stage has got to go up. They put up lights. There's a whole lot of things that you will be using toolbox. Any changes, you convene a toolbox meeting and you make sure everybody's aware of any of the hazards of their tasks. Okay, so let's say it's putting up the lights, it's a toolbox meeting just before that. Then obviously the chains, the wire ropes and all the rest of that that has to do with rigging is discussed just before they do it, okay, because there's always last minute changes and that's where a lot of risk comes from. In larger events, for example, in stadiums and that, they will have a record of the toolbox talk. Okay, they call it a toolbox talk. They'll actually write it down as they're doing it because that becomes a legal document. If something does go wrong, you can show that you did what was expected. All right, so they're the types of meetings. Future resources for this course. I've shown you this before, but just be careful with the web, of course. Remember, particularly, well, most things on the web, including LinkedIn now, is about selling a product. So just keep that in mind. Once you know their incentive or their reason for doing something, you can sort out the truth a bit better. Okay. AI is fabulous. It's fantastic at present, ChatGPT and the rest of it. You can get the theory and definitions from it. It's getting better every day. And yeah, use it. Government documents are very good, of course, particularly like I showed you, the ones from FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security in America, Department of Home Affairs, it's called here. Those are great. Academic journals aren't too hot, mainly because a lot of this stuff has to do with real experience. You don't get it by just studying in books. So some of the journals that actually have people talking who actually do the risk management and work on events are very good. But a lot of the academic journals are actually about event studies, okay, not about event management per se, although they call themselves event management. They mean the study of event management, not how to manage events. Okay. News reports are excellent because they're immediate and you can get a lot of happen. And once again, you do exactly what I'm telling you, which is think about the incentives of the news reporter and the news reporting organization, and then you can sort out the truth value of it. Probability, remember. Associations and LinkedIn is excellent at this point in time. There's quite, because of the incredible exponential growth of risk management for events, there's quite a lot of LinkedIn groups that publish a lot of stuff. It's very good. Government audits are brilliant as ever.
generally because it's an independent body comes in and then audits an event. You can find these things on the web. Like I said about the Commonwealth Games, remember that? The Indian audit, fabulous audit. Coronial reports, again, are excellent. And the reason is that, as distinct from law reports, colonial reports tend to be a little bit wider, and they can include people's opinions. And people's opinions are very important, because what's a risk to one person is not a risk to another person. Other risk information and you can get from other disciplines, without a doubt. Now you know how to do it. Now you know how to bring it across to event management, project management, fantastic risk management information there. Engineering, which is with its stress on hazards, as you know, financial risk, because a lot of the things in events are actually financial risks. Everything is based on the mathematics of stats and probability, which has to do with decision science. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for all your work.